What's up, guys? Luke Smith here with We Buy Property in Kentucky, and today I'm coming to you to talk about foreclosure. So not necessarily a fun topic, but it's a topic that needs discussed because it's really important. So today we are going to talk about how to avoid foreclosure, and specifically avoid foreclosure in Kentucky. So to start off with, what is foreclosure? Many people know what it is, but we should cover it. So foreclosure is essentially when the lender or the bank that you've used to finance the purchase of a property or an asset, they start the foreclosure process on you because you failed to service that debt. So when you go to buy a property and you use debt or you use a lender, they are actually the debt holder and they actually bought that property on your behalf. And as you pay that debt service, you're slowly amortizing that loan or paying that loan off. And ultimately, over the course of the lifetime of the loan, eventually the property is yours. But if you don't pay that loan, then that's why the lender gets mad and they start the foreclosure process. So some states are judicial, some states are civil. Kentucky is a judicial state, meaning that there is some legal paperwork that has to be done. Typically a lawyer is going to write that up, and then it's going to go from there. Now, an actual foreclosure can go months and even years in some cases. It all depends on the dialogue that you have with your lender, the mortgage company, and then ultimately the paperwork that is or isn't filed in that timeline. But at any rate, so why do people fall in foreclosure? There's a handful of reasons. Obviously, maybe you have some life event that you didn't expect. Maybe you lost your job, you fell on hard times. Maybe you had medical bills that were unexpected, or even a family member passed away and you had inherited a house. At any rate, even if that wasn't initially your responsibility, now it is. And the important thing is to avoid foreclosure, because whether or not it was your fault or harm or your result that you're in that foreclosure, you still want to deal with it, because it is going to affect your ability to get a loan, to even get an apartment, or even get credit or anything in the future. Unfortunately, a foreclosure does hit your credit, and it stays on there for 7 years. So it's really going to impact the rest of your life and your ability to lend or even get credit in the near term, and certainly in the next couple of years. So we want to avoid foreclosure, we want to address that. So really there's a handful of things that you can do to avoid foreclosure. So number one, you could renegotiate. So when you're renegotiating, essentially you can go to your lender and you can renegotiate with them. What that means is you certainly work with your individual, your bank officer, that loan officer, but you can refinance and get better terms, favorable terms, something that is possible and doable for you. When you think about a bank or a lender, they do not want non-performing assets on their books, and that's essentially what they have when they've got a house that's not being paid. That means that they've lent money and they're not getting a return on that money. So they want to get that asset performing again. So a lot of banks are willing to renegotiate, but that's going to require you to either go to them and renegotiate, or potentially get a lawyer to negotiate on your behalf. At any rate, having an open dialogue and figuring out a new solution, that's very feasible, and that's actually probably the best bet if you want to hang on to that property. They're willing to either write you a new loan or another loan on top of that, and even extend out that loan. That way you've got favorable terms, something that you can actually afford to do on a monthly basis or potentially bi-weekly basis. But so renegotiate, you got to have a dialogue with your lender. Another option number two, you could rent it out. So another option, you could rent it out. So when you rent it out, obviously you are going to have to get a tenant in there, depending on the status of that property, on the condition of it. If it's move-in ready, certainly you could get a renter in there. That does require a little bit of legwork. You got to advertise the property, usually post it online, do some interviews, maybe run a credit check, or just do some interviews if you trust yourself to pick out a good tenant. And then from there, the good news is that you want to make sure that tenant, they're paying the utilities, all of that, and then that you're getting enough rent that actually satisfies that mortgage payment that's due. Now, the con to this is certainly that, now you're relying on someone else to essentially pay you, so then you can pay that mortgage. Again, that could work for you, but you do have to pick the right tenant. Usually the tenant actually makes the property whether it's worthwhile or not. So if that tenant doesn't pay, unfortunately, then you're still stuck with paying the mortgage, which if you're in foreclosure, you probably can't afford, and that is a downside to that. So then not only is your property locked up, you've got somebody in it, but then the bank is still trying to foreclose on you. Now, the third option that you could do is you could sell the property. So if you're gonna sell the property, you get to control the narrative. The nice thing is that when you're selling a property, you could list it with a realtor. You get the MLS, which is the multiple listing service. You can have all eyes on it, not just home buyers, but literally agents, brokers. Everybody's going to take a look at that, and they're going to see your properties for sale. That means they're going to bring their buyers that have that in their buying criteria. They'll see their house. If you don't want to pay those agent commissions or fees, you could do a for sale by owner where you just list the house yourself and then you list it, online. You've got Zillow, Redfin, a bunch of different, websites that you can actually list your property for sale by owner. And again, you get all the eyeballs of the market. Now, certainly when you're selling that property, the condition of the property is going to determine the price that you garnish for that property. Really though, those are the three probably best options for you if you're in a foreclosure. The important thing is that you take action and you don't just let it go back to the bank. I guess a fourth option really would be a company like us. When you're selling it, you could sell it out on the open market to literally anybody. When you work with a company like us, we are a full service home buying company. And what we mean by that is we'll buy the property as is. You make no repairs, you don't fix anything, you don't even have to worry about closing costs because we've got that covered. We'll buy the property as is. We know it might need love, it might need work, that's okay. Whether you sell to us or you list your house with someone else, the most important thing that you want to take away from this is that you got to avoid foreclosure. It's going to impact you, your family, and certainly your ability to get credit or even get a loan in the future, and that's what we don't want. You want to keep your credit clean, and if you ultimately let that property go through the whole foreclosure process, it is going to go to auction. And the reason why I recommend one of these three things instead of letting your property go to auction is because, think about it, with these three things, you're in the driver's seat, you get to control it. When it goes to an auction, it's literally just going to go to the highest bidder. And if the bank doesn't satisfy the price that they want, they'll just hold on to the property, and they will either fix it and renovate it themselves, and then they'll resell it, and you're kind of left with nothing and the damage to your credit. And then also when you're thinking about it, people don't show up to auctions to pay full price for houses. They don't. Real estate investors show up to auctions to get a deal on properties. So I can guarantee you're not going to get full price or even the best offer that you could. Even if your house does need love, you'd get a better price, renegotiating it, renting to own it, or even selling it where you get to control the narrative. This is going to be your best bet to get the highest price for your property, even if it needs work, even if it needs love. If you're going to sell it, don't let it go to auction. At the very least, sell it where you could control the terms, you could control that narrative, and you can even work with whoever that buyer is to create terms that satisfy their needs and your needs, and you really work out a win-win deal. So hopefully that helps. Really, the goal is that you can take this and you can learn different ways to avoid foreclosure. And then certainly, if you've got questions, if you want to reach out to us, you can. Our number is 502-509-5676. Or you can visit us at WeBuyPropertyInKentucky.com. Whether we work with you or not, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. And then certainly we want to help you one way or another.